Hey there, I'm Lindsay Dreyer, host of the Joyfulpreneur podcast, where I share tips, tricks, and strategies to help women entrepreneurs maximize joy and freedom in their lives and businesses. Let's dive into today's episode. Today on the podcast, we have Danielle Lloyd, a multi-passionate entrepreneur based in Georgia. She opens up with us about having ADHD and shares her story, as well as her tips and tricks for not only surviving, but thriving. You're going to definitely want to take notes for this one. I want to talk to you about your journey to finding out that you had ADHD.
Okay, well, it's actually a fairly recent journey. My entire life, it should have been a big, bright sign that I had it, but I just developed a lot of mechanisms to help me work or run a business, things like that. So about 3-4 years ago, I was building a course for a client who is a psychologist, and we were just talking just for fun. I was like, oh yeah, I can't really use a planner. Like I never remember to write in it. Or I was talking to her like about my subjects in school. Like I would either have like an A, like a 4-point and things like writing, but like everything else, like I would forget homework. And we were just talking about just a bunch of different things. She's like, do you have ADHD? And I was like, what? And she's like, do you have ADHD? And I was like, I don't think so, because growing up, it was always just like, first of all, there was a separation between, I guess, like ADD and ADHD, but now it's combined. There's like inattentive and different types. So I was like, I don't think so. She's like, it sounds like you're a textbook case, but she's like, I'm your client. I can't diagnose you, but you should probably see someone and get diagnosed. And so I made an appointment with someone here, and she's out of state as well. Obviously, we wouldn't cross those lines, but also she can't diagnose me. So I was, at this point, I was like in my early 30s, and I was just like, have I not known this my whole life? Went there, they're like, we can't diagnose you in a first session, but I can confidently off the record say that this is what you have. And then I started reading more about it, and it was like reading my whole life back to me. So
how did that feel? It
actually felt good to have a name for something, because there were so many times where I was like, maybe I'll just finally get better. I'll finally be able to do this in such a way. Or there are so many times where I know we shouldn't have negative self-talk, but there were so many times where like, I hate myself so much because I can't do this basic thing that's just everyone can do. But now it's like, okay, I know why that this happens.
So do you feel like it gave you a little bit of like freedom, and maybe like that explanation seems like that's really helpful for you?
It was very helpful because it allowed me to forgive myself for a lot of different things. Aww. And just not be, especially as achievers, I'm sure you know, like you want to do all the things. And then sometimes I just felt like I could not execute on all the things. And so, yeah, it was like a reliever for sure.
I love that we're talking today, because I think so many times there's this misconception that high achievers can't have ADHD, or like that those two things can't be in existence together. But I think that that's so wrong. And I think like you're huge proof of that, which is like those two things can exist in the same container.
And more often than not, I'm finding that the clients that I work with have it as well. They're, we build curriculums, or I coach people from all different walks, like engineers. Like the first thing they'll be like, well, just to let you know, I have ADHD, so I'm not going to be able to like stick to this project. I was like, trust me, I have it too. And I've actually gotten business that way. Like I would say like about 60% of the people who I've worked with over the past couple of years have been openly clear that they have ADHD.
That's so interesting. And also I think like with the course creation stuff, they probably are genius and have such great ideas, and they just need your help in like organizing it and communicating it and like getting it into the package of a course. Tell me a little bit about how you have built your business, because you're an entrepreneur, you have multiple businesses. So what systems, what people, what things help you thrive as being an entrepreneur with ADHD?
Yeah, I had to learn systems the hard way. So going back like 15 years ago when I had a popular marketing, like full service marketing agency. And I would just say yes to everything because I was undercharging and wanted a lot of money. And I realized I was doing websites the morning of, like full on websites, even though I had a team. And so I started to think back, like, Danielle, you forgot that this website was even due today and things like that. So over time, I was just like, I need someone to remind me of things. So that's the very first thing that I had. And that person was my mom, because she started working in the business with me. And just a little segue, like when she passed right a month after my grandmother passed, and they were with me in the office every day. So I actually that's how I went back to like the company that you knew me with. I took a year off from entrepreneurship, and then I started doing both at the same time again because I did not have that. So then I realized, okay, I need an operations manager, someone to look at all my emails, prioritize all of my things. Yes, I have a calendar. Yes, I have a checklist, but I find with ADHD, you're either going to put too many things on your checklist, like think that you can accomplish 25 things in 2 hours, or you're not going to look at the checklist again for like 6 weeks. So I have recommend that anybody have people give them the to-do items in the way that they will do them. So for me, it's send me a Slack message and put everything in plain bullet points. Mm-hmm. That could be different for everyone. Again, one thing I'm sure you're very familiar with is we spend thousands of dollars a month on software, project management software, email, all of that just on software. But I tell clients, I'm like, I'm not going to be logging into the software because if I look at all the colors on the screen in this project management chart in this CRM, I'm not going to be able to do it.
It's going to be Greek to me. That's going to be very overwhelming.
And it's not that I don't know how. It's like I'm going to go off down the trail of like optimizing this one thing. So operations manager, number one, someone who knows what you're supposed to be doing. Also someone, I say that this can be a VA, but you want someone who can talk to clients and understand the types of projects that you're looking to do and can field short questions for you, but also understand your business and know that, okay, we're never going to do this or we're going to do that. So definitely have an operations manager. Family or spousal support is important as well because they will ping my husband and be like, remind Danielle to do this. Or it's not that I can't do those things, but it's like my safety net.
Exactly.
So yeah, I do create a to-do list every day. One of the things I find that's good with to-do lists is to think about penalties versus rewards. That has worked for me. So I use a system where I set a budget of if I don't complete at least 6 to-dos a day, it charges me money. Because for me, my biggest fear is losing money. It's just always been I grew up with like working parents, things like that. Like money's always been a thing for me. So, and I set it to a number that if I lose it, it's okay, but I don't want to lose it. So you could set it for $5, but I have mine anywhere from $30 to $100.
Wow.
So if I don't do my to-dos, I get charged and it's automatic and you cannot turn it off unless you write to the software company.
What software is this?
That's BeMinder. I use Todoist, and there is a integration with something called BeMinder, like B as in buzz, B. You can tie it to like your Apple Watch for workouts. You can tie it to Fitbits, and then they have a Zapier integration. Whoa. And so those are just some of the systems. Operations manager, a to-do list in a way that you can manage, and then just supportive team, spouse, family, friends, that type of thing.
So I'm a total software nerd. So I'm curious, is this specifically for people with ADHD?
No, I think it started that way. Another software I use is FocusMate. It's kind of like a roulette. Like most of the time they're entrepreneurs doing really cool things. Sometimes they're students. You just say, hey, I want to focus on this from 1 to 2, and it'll match you with someone. And and it ties into BeMinder as well. So I say I want to do 4 focus sessions every week. And if I don't do those, I get charged money. See, this is a thing. I went off on a tangent.
No, that wasn't a tangent. I asked you if it was a software specifically for ADHD and you answered the question, but then you went into some more helpful information. So we're going to talk about this. I want to dive into this rabbit hole. This is really interesting. So, okay. So you're talking about body doubling? Okay.
Yes, it's body
All right,
doubling.
tell me more about this.
So they have statistics on this site, but it's like you're like 90% or something more likely to do something if there's someone there. And again, not knowing I had ADHD early, I was body dumbling and didn't know it. I would have my mom be like, "Can you just sit on this couch and not talk to me?" Not talk to me in a mean way, but just like, "I need you here to build this website, to write this thing." And then I was doing that once I got married. I was like, "Can you come sit in the office? Just, there's like a little chaise lounge. Can you just sit there? You don't have to say anything and do it." But then I was coaching a client, because I do accountability coaching, believe it or not. Because
I love that.
I can show up for others. It's my thing is I can show up for others, but not myself. Like, I used to like volunteer to clean things. My mom would be like, "Why are you volunteering to clean things and your room's not clean?" I was like, "I don't know. I can show up for these people and help them." But what was the question again?
Oh, we're talking about body doubling. No worries.
Body doubling.
Give me examples about your mom. And so, okay, I want to know more about this online body doubling, because I've heard about this and I'm so fascinated. So this is through a piece of software called Relay.
The one I use is Focus.
Okay, Focus Mate. Okay.
There's also one called Focus, like ED. Focus Mate I like because you get 3 free sessions a month if you want to do longer sessions or things like that. I have it for $5 because I've had it for a while, but this one right now it's $10.
Okay.
So you can go in and it's almost like a Google Calendar, and you say, okay, from 1 to, you can do a 30-minute session, a 60-minute session, and a 90-minute session. I tend to do 60 minutes because those are right at the sweet spot. And at the beginning of the call, you say, I want to work on this. So I want to write 10 pages. I want to go through my emails. And most of the time you're going to be matched with another entrepreneur. You don't talk during the call. For the first 5 minutes, you say what you're going to do, and then you leave, you mute yourself, and you leave your camera on. And just that feeling of having someone there
watching
working,
you, yeah.
and they don't really watch you. They're working too. So you could be like doing something and I'm doing something, but just knowing that, 1, you're obligated to that person to show up. 2, you kind of have that obligation to yourself, like, because at the end of the session, they're going to be like, "Hey, did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish?" And I don't want to say I scrolled through Facebook and went down a rabbit hole. Like, no, I wrote these 10 pages, or I wrote 8. I got there a little bit more. With Focus, I believe it's like a $60 or $70 a month membership, and they have specific sessions. That one didn't work as well for me because I don't always plan that far ahead. Because there's sessions at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. I normally plan my focus sessions about an hour or 2 before they happen. I'm like, okay, here's how my day went. Let me do a focus session from 9 to 11. So I like that flexibility.
That is so fascinating. And you've had like good experiences? There haven't been any like chat roulette problems or like anything creepy or weird?
I've never had anything creepy. They do have a Facebook group, and I have been just tracking to see if anyone else had anybody creepy, and nobody has. Sometimes the worst thing you can have there is a no-show, and within like 6 minutes they try to match you with someone else. So that can be a little bit weird. Or sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, my person, I just didn't like their vibe," but you can block them and you won't get matched with them again. But there's been no like creepos showing up like,
good.
Like watching you.
I mean, honestly, it's like the first thing I go to is like, "Oh, they're matching you with strangers. Let's go to the worst case scenario."
That's what I thought too. And I haven't watch it happen. But
no, oh my gosh.
To this day, it has not happened.
I don't want to call it into being. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I don't want to ruin this for you. It sounds like a really good tool.
Yes.
All right, so I actually am curious. Can you walk me through your typical day and like how you stay on track and how you stay organized? Like what? And I know when you're an entrepreneur, there's no like typical day, but like, okay, let's like go from like you waking up. What's your routine? Like what keeps you focused?
So there is no routine. It's, did I stay up that night and do something creative, or did I go to bed that night? But typically I like to get up around like 7 or 8. I always have coffee. I need caffeine. I mean, not to like get into too much medical stuff. Some people will need medication, some people won't. For me, I just probably am terrible, but I double up on caffeine, but my functional medicine doctor said it's fine right now. So I do caffeine, and then I also put MCT oil in my coffee. And then there's like there's some like dopamine booster vitamins, things like that. Like if I'm really feeling sluggish, I might take one. But that's always coffee at the start. I do set my to-dos using Todoist, which I know is tied into Beeminder. So I always like to have at least 6 tasks on there. But because I know myself, I know that if I add 6 major tasks, I'll think I can do it all. So 4 are already set. They're on repeat every day. So that's for my vitamins, because I will forget medication. So quickly, I will forget vitamins. I'll forget an antibiotic, anything. So I have like morning vitamins, lunch vitamins, dinner vitamins, and like nighttime vitamins. And so those are like 4 good to do. So it's like if I'm being healthy and taking care of myself, I already got 4 of the 6.
You're winning.
But yeah. I'll add 2 or 3 more major projects. And sometimes I have the app on my phone. I have it as a save tab or like a bookmark at the top of Chrome. So I'll add more during the day so I can give myself points or credit, kind of like gamifying your day. But at the base, I want to know what I want to get done. The hardest thing for me is that I have open meetings as far as like Calendly. Like you can book me between certain times. Like I'll block off set of times. So sometimes I don't know. With Calendly, you can say, hey, give 6-hour or 12-hour notice. But if it's a lead, I want to be pretty open.
Right. That's your revenue. You want to take those sales calls. Exactly.
And I still do sales myself because it's not something that's typical. You need to have like a business background to understand how you can help someone either monetize a course or build a course, things like that. I also have certain blocks for coaching clients. I work with mostly female entrepreneurs, but things like that, because whether you have Focus Mate, whether you have Beeminder or whatever, if you don't know what to focus on, you can just be spinning around. Like for instance, if you're spending time creating a logo, I'm going to tell you that you're not a graphic designer. You need to not spend 3-4 hours doing that and hire someone, pay someone what they're worth, but there's a lot of reasonable logos out there. Or if you're like, I haven't been able to do this business for this many months. Okay, well then maybe you're taking on too much. Let's chunk it down, things like that. So I tend to work with about 10 clients a week for accountability, Monday through Thursday. But then Monday through Friday, I'm 9 a.m. to like around 4. I am talking to people, doing to-dos. And then I have lunch with my husband. We watch some TV. He's in bed by like 8. Which is, he's up at 4. We're different in that way, but it actually balances out because then I do what's called my night shift. So any creative work I do at night, typically between like 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. The world is quiet. No one is texting typically. I have a best friend who texts me all the time, but typically not a lot of texts. Most of the clients have gone to bed at that time, so I can just zone out and do creative stuff at night because that's just my zone to thrive.
Yeah, you feel like and that probably is helpful that the world is sleeping, so you don't have those like little pings and distractions. And I mean, I can imagine they're difficult for me. So it's like, I can imagine if you have ADHD, it's like, oh my gosh, there's just so much stimulation and like things flying at you.
Exactly. Yeah. And as much as like you can tell your husband or your child or whoever, I don't have kids, but I'm just saying like, hey, I'm working, you're still going to want to engage with them. Or if they're going to walk by, or you're going to hear them close the door. Or I hear my husband, he has a water flosser in his bathroom. It's like, we have separate bathrooms that works too, because he's organized and I am not. So I can be messy in my own space. But he has a water flosser that's like, And it's like, okay, you do all that before 8, and then by 9, I can just go in and be quiet, turn off my notifications, and just be creative.
Yeah, you're like, that's Danielle time. I do not want to hear the water flosser. I am going to just focus and do my creativity. All right.
Yep.
All right. So I am curious about long-term, bigger projects. So do you have any tips for those big things that have tons and tons of pieces? Like, How do you structure that? How do you make sure they get done? I struggle with it too, where it's like, it's just behemoth. So like, break it down for us. How do we get those things done?
The most generic advice you're going to hear is to like chunk it down, but then you can get caught up in that. What I always say is think about what's the minimum you can do for that project for you to feel good. And maybe I always think in terms of monetization. So let's say it's a course, or you're building a business, or you're opening a restaurant. Can you open it with like a limited menu? Can you do, especially with course creation, people come in and they're like, I want to create 20 modules. I'm like, why? Like, do you have time to take 20 modules of content? Do you think you're going to be able to write 20 hours worth of content? No, let's break this down into something manageable. I'm a big fan of delegating all the pieces that you can reasonably. Obviously, you're going to want quality control over stuff, but delegate, because not only will that keep you obligated to someone else to do approvals or review things versus just keeping it in your head. I recommend working with an accountability coach if you can. If not, you can tell a friend or someone that you're working on something. And so when you're working on those little chunks, they can check in with you. Friends tend to be nicer than someone you're paying. And also, if you don't have like financial things in place like I do, like if I don't do my to-dos, I get charged. Right. It's really hard to stay on track. So that's why I always have found that just bringing in others or software or something like that is going to be your best bet. Celebrate little wins. This used to be really hard for me because I would always want to do the biggest thing, do it, get it out there quickly, and be like, why aren't I a millionaire in 2 weeks from launching this or not being able to do that? So just celebrate your wins and just one step at a time, because especially with ADHD, you're going to see all 100 steps and you're going to want to accomplish all 100 steps, and you're going to get in hyper focus. Once you can finally focus on the thing, you're going to get into hyper focus and you're not going to be able to break away from it. And then those 100 steps that you thought you could do in whatever time, you realize you only could take 10 or 15 steps, and then you're going to be like, I don't have that 100 steps, so I can't be happy with myself. I can't be happy with this. And then it could take you another week or 2 or months to get to those 100 things. But if I have a project that I can make it 10 steps and then grow it incrementally, that's going to be so much better. It
sounds like there's just this challenge with confidence, like that you're really just like fighting yourself a lot. Do you feel like that?
You're fighting yourself a lot. You're fighting your urges. You're often like compensating and apologizing. A lot of critical self-talk, things like that. For instance, like I mentioned, my husband and I have separate bathrooms because my stuff is just going to be on the counter. And I used to be, Danielle, you're going to spend like 10 minutes a day to like tidy up, and you know, like your toner, your moisturizer, like everything's going to be sprawled out. And don't let me have to put on makeup or like get ready for something fancy because it's going to be everywhere. But then you have to be like, you're not a bad person. This is just your way of getting ready. This is just your way of doing whatever it is. And so instead of always feeling bad and being like, I'm so sorry, John, I'm so sorry, just what have you. And then there'll be other things like people, oh my gosh, I'm dating myself, but they'd be like, I balanced my checkbook today or something like that. And you're going to feel like, oh, balancing your checkbook, like that should be something easy for me. But I've been putting it off for 6 months and I hate myself because of it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, are you basically having to like radically accept yourself every single day?
Every single day. And I'm also having to pause because I will try to take on too much. I will go down a rabbit hole of researching something. I will think, I want to start this other hobby. Now, do I have time for hobbies? No, but have I been medically told to take time for a hobby because I spend too much time working? Yes. So I'll be like, hey, like last week I was like, I want to, like, so I made these earrings that I'm wearing right now.
Cute.
They're like, I sculpt the flowers and make the earrings, whatever. But then last week I was like, you know what? I want to make rugs because I saw people like making rugs.
Why not?
Like, but you gotta self-check, because then next thing you know, Amazon will be bringing like $1,000 worth of rug making tools to my door the next day. So there's a lot of self-regulation that has to happen. And once you are diagnosed and you're like, okay, wait, this is this is the ADHD talking. And then also, typically there are co-diagnoses, if you will. Like, for instance, I have OCD, but for very specific things. So again, it's just living in your head and trying to just talk to yourself and then also talk to others because you don't want to keep it all in.
Isn't it nice that we can talk about these things though now?
Yeah.
Like, I love that mental health is having a moment because I think like all of our neuroses and things are popping out. Like, I have anxiety and I take medicine for it. And 10 years ago, I would not have told anybody. But I am telling everybody here right now, it helps me a lot.
No, I totally agree. And even for me with the recent diagnosis, it was kind of hard because like, oh gosh, I have to tell people like I have this thing. And also I have anxiety. So they're like, you can't continue to go unmedicated if you have like frequent panic attacks, which they're a lot better now, blah, 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 right? But I have told friends that, and they're like, oh yeah, me too, or me, you know, and it's out there and you don't have to feel stigmatized. And I don't recommend doing this unless you want to go down a rabbit hole. If you follow what you have as a hashtag on like Instagram or anything like that, it'll be so many moments where you're just like, okay, I'm normal. I'm actually normal. Everyone is like this, and it just wasn't out there before.
I think it's so great. I really am so happy that my kids are growing up in a world where these things are talked about and they aren't stigmatized, and that it's just everyone is finding their way being a human in the world. That is just every single person. We are just trying to make it work.
And it's hard, you know? So it's like we're all just getting there together the best that we can, and that's okay.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm just so thrilled you're sharing today, because I think that this is going to help so many people, especially entrepreneurs, because I have a inkling that entrepreneurship attracts people with ADHD probably more frequently than, yeah. Don't you feel like that's the case?
Yes, and there's research that shows that. Don't get me quoting the wrong thing, but some of those signs that is a trend is, one, because we want to do things in our own way. Two, we want to focus on what we want to focus on, not in a selfish manner, but if you tell me to go look at these finances, I will put it off for however long. Like, it sounds bad to say that I can only do what sparks interest or sparks joy for me, but that's the truth. We all have hard things that we have to face. Like, I don't want to have to go get an early mammogram because my mom passed from, breast cancer, but I know that I have to do that, right? But as much as I can, I want to not feel miserable. I want to thrive in where I thrive, which is coaching and content creation, right? But when I've had other jobs before, like they say, like not every ADHD person, but a lot of us make bad employees or good managers or good thought leaders. But when it comes to the repeatable task, anything that's mundane, anything where you're just sitting there, you're not going to be the best employee, or you'll go in and you'll knock it out the park the first month or 3 months while it's new, but then you're going to be like, no. And then typically we have, I have like 3 or 4 different businesses. Typically we're going to be multi-passionate as well. Mm-hmm. So again, that just leans to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. Also, I have been reading that ADHD has been going undiagnosed in women and girls that it's very common, and that it doesn't present the same way as it does in boys and men. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, that's what was told to me by my client who's a psychologist. She's like, so many women go undiagnosed, and most of them don't realize it until mid to late 20s, early 30s. And then things start to click, like, wow, okay, I'm not this, again, all the critical self-talk that you can think of. And then you learn how to deal with it, or you seek help, or you seek resources. Because it used to be like ADHD is like, oh, just the hyperactive person. Oh, it's the kid who can't sit in their chair, or what have you.
Yeah, there's the stereotype. Yeah, the stereotypes.
Yeah, whatever they wanted to put on it at the time. And then or they'd be like, oh, so-and-so just can't focus. But it's like, why? Like, dig into that. But again, it was just like pushed to the side, and then they would just focus on this particular thing. But maybe a lot of times people with ADHD are good academic achievers, especially, like I said, in subjects that they're passionate about. We might forget some homework, but we're going to like ace the test or something like that. So because you're not presenting, especially with inattentive ADHD, because you're not presenting all these signs, and maybe you seem active because you're joining this or you're joining that, yeah, you're not going to get diagnosed. And especially women, sometimes when you say, hey, I experience these certain things, maybe or maybe not, it's taken seriously or looked into further.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about schools and how if it's not disruptive, it's not diagnosed probably, because if they're doing fine in school, then there's not a problem. Like, it's okay.
Exactly.
So do you have a coach, like an accountability coach?
No. I do not. I think it's because even though I do say like my day's chaotic, I've really gotten in the groove. I find that you just have to work with what works for you, because the same with having a personal trainer. Now, do I need a personal trainer to lose weight? Absolutely. Like, I need to be in the gym, and, you know, I have that in my Beeminder. But when I had someone like in my face, like whether they were encouraging me, like, hey, do 10 more sets, or like drill sergeant, it just doesn't work for me because I just shut down. So, one of my functional medicine doctors was telling me like, hey, we have like a accountability coach here, and they can talk to you about your to-dos, and like you can start with a gratitude journal. And I just know myself, I'm not going to write in a gratitude journal.
Same, girl. And same. I believe in gratitude, but I'm just not going to do it every morning.
And I'm also not going to show up for the session. I can't tell you how many times I've joined some kind of program where you show up for a session, and because the investment, I'm not like rich or anything, but if the investment's low, if it's like $10, I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm not gonna go to this. But if I lose money a day, then I'm gonna do it. That's just awful. But you just have to find that. But no, I don't have a coach. I have systems, and of course I have an operations manager and a husband who now works in the business. So they're really good at just saying, here are the projects, here's what to do, and do them.
So it sounds like you're really you stay in your lane, and you're like really strict about it.
Yes. 15 years ago, I had a full service marketing agency. We were doing websites, we were doing ads, like social media. Like, I sold that part of the company because we like got like top Google ranking for social media packages back when like Twitter and things like that was like first happening, and people were like, businesses were putting like social media accounts at the top right of their websites.
Yes.
That age. So we were doing all of that, and I really just broke down. I was overwhelmed. I wasn't literally sleeping for like 3-4 days at a time. They did an EKG. Like, I've had this multiple times in my life that should have told me to slow down, and my heart rate had gotten irregular and things like that. So I really was like, I can only focus on these things. So course creation, coaching, and then teaching people to coach, which kind of goes in there. And I don't say yes to anything else.
I think this is, I think, for all entrepreneurs, is like, we have to stay in our lanes. And I know we want to bring on more, and we want to grow, and we want to do all the things and wear all the hats.
Yeah.
But I do find that like, you have to delegate things. You have to stop doing things altogether. Like, you have to set boundaries. You need to be really organized with your time. So like, all of the things you're talking about, I think they're so applicable to all of us, but they just help you function at like a crazy high level. And really, I think that it's so awesome. Like, I've learned a bunch of things today. I think I should start trying body doubling.
Try it at least once, because at the end you're gonna be like, I don't know how I did all that, but this
it just makes you focus.
Whatever the science.
I'm into that. That's so smart. We can go to my closing question. So, what is one book that changed your life?
I wouldn't say a book changed my life, because I don't finish books. Especially not business books, because I'll want to do whatever's in the first 2 chapters and then
you're done.
Yeah. Then I'm done. But I will say there's a book title that I really liked. It's called like What If It Does Work Out? It's by Susie Moore. Have I read it from cover to cover? No. But have I skimmed it several times and thought about the title? Yes, because it's like, so often we can tell ourselves this isn't going to happen, or I'm not good enough for this, or whatever it is. But then you're just like, what if it does work out? What if this thing does happen? And I used to limit myself a lot. I'm sure we all have. Like, I know it's called like limiting beliefs now, and there's all this stuff about it, but it's just like, you have to just tell yourself like, what if it does work out? Because it can work out.
It can. I know. It's that positivity and like believing that all things are possible. Exactly. And I love that. What is your key to living joyful entrepreneurship?
I would say find the one thing that makes you happy and being okay that it's not what everyone else does. For instance, not writing in that gratitude journal every morning, because I'm just not going to do that. But I will force myself to, like, even if it's just once a month, like get a facial or do something to where you can completely unplug. You literally cannot touch your phone, and someone else is taking care of you because you're always taking care of so many things and so many people.
Yes. Part of my coaching is that we have to schedule our self-care and our joy first. Those are non-negotiables because they fill you up. Like, that is what you have to do. Take care of yourself. So important. All right. So how can listeners find you?
I will give a disclaimer that my client's social media looks beautiful. Mine has a few posts, but Accountability with Dani, D-A-N-I, is my website. I have cool stuff on there. Like, I have an ebook on like overcoming overwhelm and how to execute on projects when you can't. So that's, and then I also have coursemogul.com and Instagram.com/coursemogul. So we do post from time to time, but most of the time we're heads down creating courses and coaching programs for people.
I also am going to say you are a joy to work with. I loved working with you and your team when you did our course for us. Top-notch experience. You are amazing. So I'm going to give you a little testimonial here because you rock. So if you are interested in a full-service experience, you guys make a bomb class course. It's just so easy. Like, I just love that. I could just hand it to you and you guys just did it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. That means a lot.
It was so great.
Seriously. And you're a joy to work with too, because you're actually accountable to yourself, and you handed us the things and you gave us the feedback, and totally dream clients.
Oh my gosh, this is such a good love fest. Let's end on this note. Thank you so much. It was so great to chat with you, and I'm so appreciative of your bravery and honesty and willingness to be so open and share about your experience. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Joyfulpreneur podcast. Remember to check the show notes for all the links and resources mentioned in this episode. Your reviews also mean the world to me. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Until next time, stay joyful.